right, but the average parent should not have to read these things.
They absolutely should.
Yes. Yes. Whoa. Watching Billboard Chris, he just puts boards and says woman or woman, man or man, and he starts conversation that seems to be very interesting to some people.
What does that mean?
Do you believe in the ability of a parent to consent to things that their child should have? Or do you think the government should stand in the way between a doctor and parents?
So I'm all about parental rights, but there's one right they don't have, and that's the right to abuse their children.
So I don't believe that hormone blockers are abusive of children. Putting them through something they don't consent to, something that causes suicidality later in life, is probably something that is more abusive.
That's what they always say.
I don't know, if we're going to talk about maybe like the mutilation of penises through, for example, circumcision.
Well, I don't think we should.
That's a different thing.
Either, but that's totally a separate subject.
That's good.
So I'm not here to engage in whataboutisms. You went to the first argument I hear every single time I have these conversations, and I've been doing this out on the street for 3 years. And you said that kids are going to kill themselves. You talked about suicidality. Mm-hmm. You think kids are going to kill themselves if they go through puberty?
Yes. I think a lot of trans people, the percentages are in my favor. I think, for
You've got some data to back this up to you?
I don't have it off the top of my head. But
Can you point me in the general direction of any studies or anything?
I mean, honestly, I don't have them bookmarked in my mind, but I can tell you that in my
no one ever does. Sorry.
I'm sure there are people you talked to that have.
Well, I've done all the research on this.
Have you?
Yes.
I've seen it a lot, and I've read a lot, and it's more like, let's do it now because it seems to be working, but we're not even sure how it's going to end in the future. But at least they're feeling good right now.
And it takes a real unique combination of passion and artistry in order to do these surgeries and do them really, really well. So, but, you know, time always takes care of things. And that's why you have to trust medicine and well-meaning clinicians and scientists to do the right thing.
That's just one thing that I find a lot. And I think that's a horrible analogy. Or the other analogy, well, we're building the plane where we're flying it. The analogy is like, yo, so you don't even know if it's going to work?
There have been no studies, no qualitative studies, no quality studies into children. All the studies that have been done about suicides and people who call themselves transgender have been done with the adult population. And a lot of these studies suck, to be honest with you, because they're hold on, let me just finish this one point. A lot of these studies are self-reported. They're not doing follow-up with everyone who gets these procedures done. Mm-hmm. But the most comprehensive study we do have where no one was lost to follow-up was done in Sweden.
And they canceled
the adult population, and 10 years after the fact, 10 years after sex reassignment surgery, suicides were 19.1 times higher than their peers, after accounting for similar mental health comorbidities. If you eliminate that, it's about 40 times higher than the general population. So there is no evidence that this is reducing suicides. All the evidence we do have, and there isn't enough quality evidence with children, but all evidence we do have points to the exact opposite, that suicides are increasing.
Yep.
But it's a very coercive, manipulative tactic to say that kids are going to kill themselves if we don't transition them. And it works on much of the population. Because
it works on the parents, because as a parent, you really care about your kids. And you're told, you're not a doctor, you're not a scientist, you're not a psychiatrist, you're not a therapist, so you have to go along. But when you give somebody so much power and they reach the top that is supposed to make them happy, amen, it comes crashing down. That's why when many people reach the thing they work for, their utopia, and they're there, they get in a gangster depression. It happens to everybody, and they need to find new purpose. But now you're giving this to kids, and you're teaching them blame others.
Because obviously people don't want kids to kill themselves.
When we talk about a medical intervention, we're looking at the increase in happiness, the betterment it has in people's lives, right? Mm-hmm. If suicide is an outcome of something, we want to decrease that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can't just
obviously
say,
we want to decrease suicide.
Suicide is coercive. Okay?
Saying that kids will kill themselves if we don't transition them is absolutely coercive, 100%.
But it's a real outcome.
It's not. There's no evidence for that.
Okay, let me look it up. Suicidality.
Well, in 5 seconds here, you're not going to be able to go through research studies. But
Well,
you can always send me some later if you find some. I'm always happy to read them.
You're worried that something's going to come up that will
No,
disagree with you.
I'm really...
No, because usually you will find the thing that most people might search or what is pushed in front of you. You need to go read everything, come to your own conclusion, listen to 10,000 people, and then be like, okay, this might be happening. But most people don't. I even found videos. They're not even sure. They're like, hey, we're giving it these puberty blockers, and guess what? They don't feel anything anymore because we changed so many things in their body because they were so young.
The second was an observation that I had that every single child or adolescent who was truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm. I mean, it's really about 0. These are just assigned male at birth, so trans feminine. And it's because they never in their lives are exposed to testosterone. Blockers prevent the rise of testosterone, and they don't really go on testosterone at or around surgery or into adulthood.
They don't know. Remove the breast. Don't worry. We can put a new one. I'm like, bruh. I'm not saying that everything is bad, but the fact that you focus that everything you do for these kids is only good. And if anything bad is happening, it's not the doctor's fault, it's not the therapist's fault, it's the fault of this planet that doesn't like you. I'm like, come on, bro. If I was a kid and I could be treated like a woman after my mom passed away because everybody told me, be a man, be strong, I would definitely identify like a woman. There were ladies also that decided, what? Grape everywhere. They grape my friend. Well, I want to be a man because I learned by doing these studies that a lot of ladies have so much mental struggle when they become a woman, when everybody's looking at them, when their body changes. I didn't know it was such a big deal.
Really not worried because, as I've said,
Then why don't you want me to
I've been doing this. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead.
But you're not going to find something in 20 seconds here. When it comes to research reports, you need to read the whole things.
And Google is going to remember all the things you searched previously, so it's going to give you the thing that gives you more possibility to keep engaging in that stuff. It's not like a random thing. It's made for you.
To look at the sample size, you need to look at where the data is coming.
Well, right, but the average parent should not have to read these things.
They absolutely should.
Yes. Whoa. Okay. No. You cannot do that to me. That's like the actual parent doesn't need to know what's happening at the school, even if we're doing these things over here. Welcome to California, like my previous video.
No.
If a parent is going to transition their child, they should be reading every single ounce of research in existence.
All of the research for cancer treatments, for any surgery their child has.
So puberty is not a medical condition. Cancer is a medical condition.
Gender dysphoria is a medical condition.
Gender dysphoria is absolutely.
And we can assess that in children. There are things outlined in the DSM-5 that children can have that say this child has gender dysphoria, and we can say this treatment is the one that best remedies their symptoms and leads to better quality in life.
So I'll tell you what the best treatment is historically.
Okay.
Leaving them alone.
You really think so?
Yeah.
So on my website, and I know you're gonna, well, maybe you won't, but a lot of people say I'm not going to your website. It's gonna be biased.
I've gone to your website before. We had this conversation like a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. How about that? Small world. So on my website, on the studies page, there's a link to 12 different academic studies that have been done into gender dysphoria before we gave kids puberty blockers. So they've been doing the puberty blocker thing for the last 15, 20 years. So these studies are a little older because now they're doing puberty blockers. But before they gave kids puberty blockers, 80 to 90% of the time, kids with gender dysphoria just grew out of it when they went through puberty. And when we talk about gender dysphoria historically, it's different than what we're talking about today. Because historically, this affected mostly boys. When they were really young, it started, 4 or 5 years old. And today, we're talking about a totally different population, a totally different cohort. It's mostly adolescent girls who didn't experience this growing up, but they're getting to 10, 11, 12, 15 years of age, whatever. And now they're having this sudden onset of gender dysphoria.
So I think
but just hold on one sec.
Okay.
So all these studies historically, and on my website, there's a good little spreadsheet. You can look at the data from all of them side by side. The majority of these kids grew up to be gay. And the vast majority saw their gender dysphoria desist. This was severe and prolonged gender dysphoria that started at a young age. The cure for gender dysphoria in almost all these cases was puberty itself. Now we block the cure.
Hey man, that was deep. That was really deep. I like the fact that they had this conversation and this person was actually listening to try to understand his point of view, and he did speak a little more. He did cut off, I admit it. But the thing is, the answer that they keep saying, that they're going to talk about, hey, Jewish people or other culture do snippety snip down there. It's like they have a handbook. And he's like, hey man, just read a bunch of research and let's talk about those research. But nobody that comes with their view comes with the research. And there comes a point you're like, am I having an honest conversation? Because you all seem to have a talking point, but I don't feel like you read something, you have a view, you chose it personally, and that's why you're fighting for this view. And I like the fact that he just wants to start in a conversation and he does it the most honest way. And this is a man, a trans woman, but this is the best conversation that you can have. And many times they scream in his face, they spit on him and everything, they break his camera. You. And I'm like, why? It's not that he's like attacking you. He just really care. Anybody, LGBTQ or not, you should be able to have this conversation. And sadly, I don't think it's happening enough. That's why we are so divided. Because in California, they just want to affirm. They don't seem to care what's going to happen in the future. They just want to affirm. They just passed a bill. And I just think it's a pipeline for making money.
That parents affirm their children. They have since the dawn of time. Typically, it happens when their gender identity expression matches their biological gender. But what happens is when it doesn't, that's when the affirmation starts to wane. And that's what we're dealing with here. Although it's called the TGI bill, they're not mentioned anywhere in the law. What's mentioned in the law is the child's gender identity and expression. And the
Anyway, I'll just end it here. Let me know what you guys think about the whole situation. And see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Parents to affirm our children.